Hey, this is Mikey Whipwreck from ECW, and you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com. Or am I in your head? Or my head, your head? Somebody's head. Alpha wants head? Also should get head. I don't know. Anyway, that's where you're at.
All right, we are back, and we are joined by Father James Mitchell. I want to welcome you to In Your Head.
Thank you, gentlemen. Jack and Mr. One-Inch Biceps, a pleasure to be on your show.
It's a pleasure to have you here. You'll let everybody know, Saturday, April 5th, that's this Saturday, you're going to be at Levittown, Pennsylvania. It's at the Benjamin Franklin Middle School, and for Sinomania. Now, you can go to sinomania.com. We'll have the link on the website at inyourheadonline.com. I believe you'll be there from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yes, and I may even be there longer. You never know. I'm a media whore, so I tend to stick around a little longer sometimes. So as long as it's going well, I'll stick around. Yeah, that's actually I'm being brought in by a gentleman by the name of Greg Price, who actually was one of the indie promoters I worked for fairly often down in the Carolinas before I got my first big break. And it's kind of good to see Greg after all these years, and I've been underground here for the last month or so it'll be good to get out and see the fans from TNA and around the rest of the globe. And it is, he's going to be having me signing 8x10s. He'll also be doing posed pictures with the fans, and he's also going to have a limited number of my TNA action figures there. And for those of you who collect action figures, you may know this doll is what they call a variant, which means there was like one of me for every case of dolls. So if there was 8 AJ Styles and 8 Kurt Angles and 8 whomevers, there was one of me in each case. So it's been really difficult to find. I know that when they first came out, they were going at times for $40 and $50 on eBay. But I know Greg's going to have a small amount of them, and it's going to be sort of a first-come, first-served deal with those. But they are legit collector's items straight out of the box, and it'll be one of the rare times you'll be able to get the limited edition James Mitchell TNA action figure signed by yours truly, so you don't want to miss out on that.
Excellent. And just so you know, you got to make sure you always call it action figure and not dolls.
Yes, that's right. Somebody once told me the difference between an action figure and a doll is that a doll doesn't have a firearm. However, I guess the difference in my case is that a doll doesn't have a pentagram on its chest usually.
Right.
That makes me an action figure.
Right. Or I think it's more like guys don't want to say they collect dolls.
Well, that's true too.
So you
all the same.
Yeah, and so you let everybody know Greg Price, you put the Greg Price booth, like you said, and you can check out his website at nwalegends.com. You said this will be like, is this like the first time you've caught up with him for a long time? I haven't seen Greg in years and years. I think I may have bumped into him, at the debacle in San Francisco a while back. I know I briefly ran into him somewhere in the last year or so, but it was just more like a hi, how you doing, and kept moving. But prior to that, I probably have not seen him since about 1996 or so, right around the time I went to work for WCW. So somewhere in that vicinity, it's been a long time. Yeah. You mentioned the California thing. It's too bad things like that happen because it gives like a bad name for all these kind of events. But one thing I want to say, I got paid.
Right. I got paid. I got put up in a first-class suite, so I can't complain. Now, was it horribly disorganized? Yes, it was. There was just drama for 3 days running, but it didn't affect me. I mean, I got there, and in fact, when I got there was no place for me to sit down and sign anything. So I just walked around and signed autographs, and took it upon myself to do it. But I don't think we're going to have that problem at Sinomania.
No.
I believe, Greg does this for a living, so I'm sure he'll have everything set up properly.
And Greg's never asked me for $50,000 like the promoter in California did.
Right.
Right. Which didn't go over too well. How about catching up with some of the wrestlers that are going to be there? Like Bill Alfonso's going to be at Sinomania.
Oh yeah, it'd be great to see Fonzie. gosh, I don't think I've seen him since I was working for the now defunct MLW promotion. So, yeah, he's always been a popular one. That'll be a good one to visit. Mm-hmm. Who else is going to be out there?
You get the Steiner brothers going to be there.
Okay.
I don't know if you've...
fellow TNA alumni.
Magnum TA. Nikita Koloff.
Legend.
Yeah, definitely.
Nikita, wow, I haven't seen him in forever. Okay, who else do we got?
Road Warrior Animal. Tammy Sitch.
Wow.
Have you seen her recently? She actually looks pretty good.
I saw her actually in California, and in fact, I believe there was a picture of Tammy and I together, Tammy and myself together, and it was one of the Inside Wrestling or something like that, the most recent one, or the one from last month. There was a shot of us in the magazine from there, and she was looking like $1 million. Looks like she's gotten life turned around. But yeah, it sounds like they've got a hell of a lineup out there. Definitely worth everybody going out there if you're autograph collectors and like catching up with the old school folks. They aren't often doing the indies and stuff anymore. It's good a chance as you're ever going to get that close to them. In fact, you'll get closer to them there than you will sitting in a front row seat in a wrestling match.
Right. One other name I got to bring up, though, is Sabu will be there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's outstanding. Sabu and I have, over the years in the wrestling business, made each other bleed and hurt one another, but I have a great deal of respect for Sabu. He is a legend in his own time, and that's good news. I had no idea what the lineup was going to be, so that's good news that you gave it to me. I love Sabu. It would be great to see him out there.
Yeah, and that's definitely...
As I'm sure it will for everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely a guy I don't think does too many of these shows.
No, he learned from his uncle, the legendary original fire-throwing Sheik, that one must keep an air of mystery about themselves, stay in demand. So he's not one you're going to find usually shaking hands and kissing babies, want to cut the ribbon to a McDonald's.
Right.
So, that's another.
Yeah. He might even have the spike in his boot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But...
well, what else is up, gentlemen?
Yeah. Well, one thing we always like to ask, so when everybody's doing these shows, what's like the strangest thing anyone's ever asked you to sign?
Strangest thing anyone's ever asked me to sign?
Right.
A marital aid. I think is the best I can say on the radio without getting in trouble. Yes, a motorized device that one usually finds in the bedside drawer of married couples. And it was an enormous one. And I wonder if it was shellacked after I signed it so that the Sharpie wouldn't rub off. I don't know. Yes, that would be the strangest thing I ever signed, I think.
It might have went up on eBay.
Gosh, I'd probably buy it back. No, I wouldn't, because I probably don't want to touch it by now.
You mentioned the original Sheik. Now, what were some of the guys that kind of got you into wrestling, or the guys like you try to emulate a little bit in your character?
God, the original Sheik and Abdullah the Butcher were to me, they're the two greatest all-time villains ever. And to this day, if Abdullah can still make people part and get out of his way when he comes down that aisle. Mm-hmm. Abdullah and the Sheik, as far as the crazy over-the-top villains, I loved them. I grew up in spent the majority of my wrestling youth in the old Mid-Atlantic area. So when I started watching wrestling there, Johnny Valentine, Ric Flair, Blackjack Mulligan were big ones. We also got Georgia Championship Wrestling on another channel. This was very early cable days. So I got Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, Georgia Wrestling, and Florida Wrestling all combined over the course of a weekend. We also had a great Korean heel, Pak Song, who was, 6'9", 7 feet tall, huge guy. He was a great heel. Dick Slater was another one that I admired a lot growing up. Who else was there? Then the managers, like the Grand Wizard, who was my all-time favorite manager. He was in there. Gary Hart. as Playboy Gary Hart, when he still had hair, was at war with Dusty Rhodes' Army. I mean, it was the 1970s were just an incredibly colorful time for the wrestling business. And if you go back and look at what they call the Apter mags, the old magazines from the 70s, I mean, they're incredible. You know, they're just the blood and the melodrama and everything that you'd see on every color on the cover of every magazine, just incredible. Like, and that was the spirit I grew up watching wrestling in, which is probably why I'm so over the top now. You know, if you go back and look at those wrestling magazines, you know, I loved them when I was a kid, right? Then I got into the business and started smartening up to it, and I was insulted that anybody ever tried to show me those magazines. You know, I thought they were an insult to my intelligence. Right. Then years later, I went and started looking them back up on eBay, and there's a certain charm to them, and they really. And another funny thing is, if you go back and read the advertisements in those magazines from the 70s, you know, these were produced by the same company that made those damn sleazy True Detective magazines back in the day. You know, and in fact, they shared a photographer. I believe it was Theo Barrett was his name, but. It was just the sleaziest, funniest stuff, you know, and they'd take somebody send them 4 pictures from a house show somewhere, and they'd create these incredible, over-the-top, ridiculous stories because they had to put 2 or 3 pages of text to slap around 3 pictures of Dino Bravo wrestling Blackjack Mulligan, you know? And it wasn't just the 2 guys locked up in the ring, you know, it would be some big conspiracy involving the CIA and Martians and just crazy stuff, you know? It was an over-the-top, colorful time to be in the wrestling, you know, to be a wrestling fan. And the funny thing is, that's where a lot of people used to get their information back in the day. There was no internet, there were no dirt sheets, anything like that. So you read these things, you either took it for what it was, or, you know, that's why people to this day still walk around quoting some of that crazy stuff from those mags. But that was the era I grew up in, you know, and those were great heels. Pampero Firpo was another one that was incredible. It was right on the tail end of Freddie Blassie, was still wrestling a little bit in 73, 74 maybe, had a couple matches left in him, but it's a great time to be in. So yeah, all those guys, I kind of rolled into one and stole a little bit from all of them one way or another, and popped out with the funny-looking guy you're talking on the phone with now.
Excellent. I actually have a room full of the old Apter mags. I used to subscribe to them up until probably until the 90s.
How far back do yours go?
Probably some of my older brothers might go into the 70s. Mine, I probably started reading them in the 80s. I was born in 76.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have were yours beyond the era of the sleazy ads?
Well, even later on, they had ads where it would be like apartment wrestling with women.
Yeah. Inflatable love dolls and, you know, get rich quick screens and power bracelets for your arms and fake chest hair toupees and all kinds of great stuff. I mean, it is just amazing reading.
Right.
I just moved into a new house the other day, about a week ago, and had a whole pile of those that I didn't remember existed anymore, and spent an evening looking at them and just laughing my head off. They're an art form unto themselves.
Besides those, do you collect anything from wrestling? Either stuff, you know, from like your career or other people's memorabilia?
Here and there. You know, of course, like I said, I'm a media whore when I can be, so I, of course, collect all of my articles and stuff like that from newspapers or from magazines and whatnot. And you know, every once in a while, off the top of my head, I can't think, but I mean, if I come across something, you know, of some sentimental value, you know, I'll dig it up. I'll grab, like, when I come across some, like, old wrestling programs, you know, from, like, the old territory days. Those are fascinating to look at, even if I don't know who in the hell was in them, if I don't even know who the performers were. I actually have lost on several auctions over the last couple of years due to my schedule, because I can't sit there and watch the auctions, the online auctions. Somebody's been auctioning some of the Grand Wizard stuff on and off. You know, a couple of his turbans and his sunglasses and stuff to come up. And if I ever get the time to really sit there and chase it, I plan on getting some of those. You know, little things like that have inspired me over the years. Hell yeah, there's a magic mojo to some of that stuff, you know. And, you know, anything like that that comes along, sure, I'll grab up in a heartbeat. But it's usually, my stuff would be really not so, I wouldn't collect something so much to buy it for collector value. I mean, I'd be willing to spend a great deal of money on anything. It's just more, it's kind of like an old totem or icon for a primitive person. You know what I mean? It's something that was just really personally inspiring, you know, that brings back memories to me. It's like walking through a time machine, you know. So anytime I stumble across that kind of stuff, I'll scoop it up. But, you know, I don't have like a trophy room or anything set up like or a museum like Cornette does up in his
yeah. Oh, yeah. When you see Cornette at the Fan Fest, like a Greg Price Fan Fest, he's like buying a whole table full of items.
Oh, he's got an incredible, I don't know if you saw, he did one of those shoot interviews with somebody, and he was walking around with, Carrie Silken, I think, perhaps, walking around just going through all this stuff in his, the Cornette Museum, the museum wing of his house, and he's just got an incredible collection of just some obscure stuff. But, you know, he's as somebody said years ago, you could cut off most of the fingers on my right hand, and I still wouldn't tell you that Cornette was anything less than one of the greatest minds in the business. You know, and he is a great historian, has a great knowledge of the business, and is like neck and neck with Bobby Heenan, who's, you know, realistically the all-time greatest all-around manager too. So, I would not be surprised that he doesn't empty the tables.
Now, would that have been your first big break working for Cornette and Smoky Mountain?
Yeah, well, actually, interestingly enough, my first television break was for Greg Price on a promotion called South Atlantic Pro Wrestling.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
You know, it was a promotion that I think it was trying to pick up the old Mid-Atlantic kind of territory. And in fact, it was started by some of the old guys like John Ringley and some others that were in the old Jim Crockett office from the early 70s. Anyhow, Greg Price was either owned it or booking it back when, this was about 1990 or so, or 90 or 91, and that was my first TV. And then then Cornette was stage 2. So, that was Cornette was the first one where I started getting, like, you know, the underground buzz and the sheets and whatnot.
Was it always your goal to get into wrestling as a manager, or did you ever think of getting into wrestling as a wrestler?
As a kid, I did, and I realized real quickly that I was not, I wasn't an athlete, B, I didn't have the size, you know. And frankly, I just, you know, my gifts are not physical, they are verbal. You know, so, what was it Dirty Harry used to say? A good man's got to know his limitations, you know. So, I run with my strengths and downplay my weaknesses. So, by the point I was serious about getting into it, I knew absolutely a manager is what I wanted to be.
I'm kind of disappointed, though, when you talk about the collections, that you don't actually have, like, a basement full of human oddities.
Oh, no, you mean that kind of stuff? Oh, absolutely I do. I thought you meant wrestling memorabilia.
Oh, okay.
Oh, God, I've got all kinds of stuff. I've got, like carnival oddities and things like that. I've got a house full of them. I'm putting them up right now. I've got Fiji mermaids. I've got mummified hands. I've got what they call pickled punks in the carnival business, misshapen, you know, fetuses in jars and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, that's okay. I thought you meant wrestling memorabilia. Yes, I've got, I guess what you call an auditorium.
Right.
Like Robert Ripley. So, yes, all that stuff that has been incorporated into my act over the years as a shoot. That's, and my house, usually people walk in my house and it's going to take me probably 3 months to get this new one all set up because I'm late. I don't like unpacking things, but you'll feel like you're walking through the carnival. I collect old carnival banners, you know, from the freak shows, all kinds of stuff like that.
We talked about great managers. Actually, when we had Paul Bearer on the show, and he was just talking about, like, managers like old school managers and how they're not really around anymore. And I mentioned your name, and he just said like he actually considers you an old school manager. I was wondered like if you considered that like a big compliment.
Absolutely, man. Percy Pringle, Paul Barrow, whatever you want to call him. I mean, that guy, he's road tested, and of course he was managed probably arguably the longest lasting main event attraction in the history of the WWE, which would be The Undertaker, who's been there continuously and never left. You know, that was, in fact, I was rather touched when I heard that. I had the opportunity to be around Percy a handful of times, not a whole lot, but maybe 4 or 5 times I've been around Percy, and he's a great guy. He's a wealth of knowledge. There was an aspiring manager that I knew, or that I know. Years ago, I had the opportunity to ride with Percy a few times, and he was one of these guys who's first breaking into the business. He wants to sit and talk about how great he is, you know? And I told him, look, if you're riding with Percy Pringle, I'd pay you to be in your position. You know, shut up, keep your mouth shut, quit talking about how great you are, and listen to that man and let him run the show. You know, Percy's top, he's just high class, top shelf stuff. I like him a lot. I was really flattered that he had such a thing to say about me.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of people too think old school means a relic of some sort. That's not it. You know, to me that's a compliment, because name somebody who counts as a new school manager and we'll see the difference.
Right.
You know, that's the reason the art, as they say, is lost. Because it's not about getting heat. It's not about putting your man over. It's about going out there these days and just majority of people in that position are strictly worried about getting themselves over, you know, as standalone characters, and not doing anything to advance the work of their guys or the storyline or the career of their guys. So to be called an old school manager, I think, is about as high a praise as I could possibly get.
What were some of the guys you managed you thought you like had the best chemistry with?
You know, I had until everything blew up. I had a wonderful time with Abyss, my son. Right. So and Judas Macias, and he will be back. And right now he's got some other engagements in Mexico he's got to deal with. But that I saw and do see big things coming from that. I felt a great chemistry with him. Mortis, for those of you who don't remember him from the old Blood Runs Cold angle, Mortis was horribly underrated performer.
One of the best masks.
Oh, yeah, the luchadors used to go crazy over his mask, but yeah, he was an incredible talent. And I was on the road all the time with him too, you know, so instead of just doing TV and pay-per-views, you know, I mean, I was out, we were on the road all the time, you know, and really got to hone my ringside work and stuff like that. You know, we had a great chemistry, so I'd say probably those three were the most fun, you know. And then, of course, you know, there's been times over the years in the indie circuit where I got to manage various legends. Like, you know, Abdullah the Butcher was one of the first people I ever managed when I got into the business, you know, and I was just basically dumbstruck, you know, like a deer in the headlights. You know, there does exist some pictures of me and Abdullah walking to the ring, but I mean, I was so damn scared I didn't know what I was doing. You know, and Abdullah came to me. I wasn't even booked to be with him. I was managing an underneath guy on the card, and Abdullah came up to me and said, "Hey kid, you're coming with me." And I fainted. But so that, you know, that was a memorable thing, and I didn't do much but just stand there and like a mark and stare at him.
When you mentioned Abyss, so like I've always said on the show, not just because you're here, but like I always thought he was like a underrated wrestler, and I thought like when you guys teamed up, I just thought it was like a perfect pairing. And I think
there was that. And as I said, Abyss and I on TNA are not an item, and would probably like to kill each other on and off screen. Right. That's one of those examples where you just caught the lightning in the bottle. The zeitgeist was there. You know, it was he was a top shelf wrestler. in need of that icing, and I was icing in need of the cake, you know? And I had a chance to look at the old Doomsday Best of Abyss DVD the other day. I pulled it out when I started unpacking some of my stuff here at the new house, and regardless of all the other horrible things that I can say about him on and off screen, he is an incredible big man performer. You know, he's got it. You know, and he'd have more of it if he listened to me. He would split up. But yeah, he's an incredible talent. You don't get big guys that can go in there and go, you know, match it up with a smaller guy like an AJ Styles or somebody. You know, and he can brawl, he can wrestle, he can do it all, and it kills me to say it, but you know, he's main event stuff. Hell, you know, I took him to the world title, so that should speak volumes for what he's capable of.
I was going to mention the AJ Styles matches. I think that's like when I first really noticed how good he was. You know, a lot of people say like the smaller guys can help carry like big guys, but do you think it takes like a good big man to make like a match with a smaller guy like really look good?
Yeah, well, you know, and that goes into more time. I don't have time to go into all the intricacies. It was kind of, if you can't watch me move my hands around, it's But yeah, there's an art in working with anybody. You know, and it's like they used to say about Ric Flair being able to work a broomstick. You know, if you really know what you're doing, if you're really talented, you can go out there with a no talent. You know, and still make it look interesting, because nobody wants to pay to see you in the ring with a scrub, right? And the other thing is, if you've got somebody who works a different style, right, you need to be able to either adjust to the style or be able to make them adjust to your style, you know, and there's an art to that. So, yes, I guess I agree with what you said there. It's a horrible big man isn't going to make a little guy look better. Right. So, yeah, you know, that would be a feather in a business cap. Anything else, guys? Because I've got to run out of here in a minute.
Yeah, I just want to know, do you ever miss Catacombs Are Filled with Souls song?
Oh, the old New Church song, right?
Yeah. I mean, every time you guys would come out, I'd hear the Catacombs Are Filled with Souls. And
you know, I never actually listened to the lyrics. All I remembered from it was "We're going to take you under" or something like that. And OEO, like the monkeys from Wizard of Oz. Yeah, that was a fun tune. Those were good times with the New Church too.
Right.
But anyway, guys, listen, I'm going to have to run. I ran way over time here. So I've got to.
Sorry about that.
Got to go sing for my supper. No problem. So as far as plugging things, yes, this Saturday, Levittown, Pennsylvania, Sinomania. I will be there. You can get photos, 8x10s. You can get, in fact, I'm going to have some old photos, some old Sinister Minster photos, and old Daryl Van Horn photos from the Smoky Mountain days will be out there for sale. Take pictures with me, and Greg is supposed to have a limited number of my action figures out there. And, of course, want everyone to remember to tune in to TNA Impact every Thursday night at 9 p.m.
Excellent. And you check out TNAWrestling.com, everybody.
Yes, TNAWrestling.com. Don't want to miss that either. And also on YouTube, I believe we're like the number 1 or number 2 most watched franchise on YouTube. So be sure to check out anything you miss on TNA on YouTube.com.
Excellent. Well, really appreciate you coming on tonight.
All righty. Well, Jack and Mr. 1 Inch Biceps, I've got to get out of here. Thank you for having me on, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.
Listen up, this is the hardcore chair-swinging freak, the only king of violence, Axel Rotten, and you're the only place I'm at on the internet. That's in your head right here with my man Jack and the 1 Inch Bicep, the only place on the internet for wrestling news.